I'm Guy Trainin from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
And I'm Kimberly Ingraham-Beck from Gretna Public Schools.
And this is CS4NE. And today we are talking to Abby. Can you tell us a little bit about Abby?
Yeah. So Abby is in her second year teaching computer science for Westside Public Schools. And before that, she worked as a STEM teacher, not with schools, but just in different organizations around the area. And she's worked in the industry as well. So she has some really interesting and unique perspectives coming from the industry into education that I think a lot of people who are only in the education world don't necessarily get. So I'm excited to see what she's going to say.
All right, let's go to the interview.
Hey, Abby, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself and about your experience in computer science education.
Sure, yeah. I started off with this meandering career path back in the aughts when I was an undergrad computer science major before I even thought of teaching. Got a chance to teach some of my peers with the supplemental instruction program, and then went, I think I want to teach. So as a junior undergrad, I decided to become a teacher, and that extended my stay in my university. And then I immediately went to teaching math, because at the time you couldn't actually get certified the way I wanted to for computer science. They told me I'd have to have a business degree, and I wasn't about to take on a whole econ minor in order to get my business endorsement. So I went ahead and taught math for a while, and then my skills got rusty, and I stepped aside back into private sector, and I worked in a dev shop, ran my own business for 12 years. Always tried to keep one foot in education. I did a lot of freelance curriculum development and professional development for teachers. And then finally, when I heard that UNO offered the computer science master's in CS education, that was when I was like, all right, it might be time to come back and actually get certified the way I wanted to and do the thing. And then COVID hit, because, of course it did, right when I was getting ready to come back. So I slow played that one a little bit. Finally started teaching again last school year here in Omaha at Westside High School. So it's been an interesting path, and I'm finally back in the classroom where I wanted to be, teaching computer science.
That's amazing, and what a fun little road that journey you've been on.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about paired programming. So can you tell us how you introduced that concept to your students?
Sure. First of all, I introduced them to a lot of other paired activities, and specifically ones that have defined roles. So I don't necessarily jump straight into paired programming. I'll do something where I have them paired up just to answer a question, but one has to answer it one way and one has to answer it another way. So there's a role A and a role B, and that helps get it going with knowing that they're supposed to have different roles. And that's quick. You do it in a couple minutes, you're done, it's over, and you can do it again, and you can practice until you have this understanding that one person has one role and one has another. So like in my web design class, I might ask, we're talking about color schemes and picking colors for a client for their website. Partner A, in the even numbered tables, you are going to tell me what warm color would be best for this client. And partner B, you're going to tell me what cool color would be best for this client. And then you're going to argue amongst yourselves and pick out who was right and pitch it to me later. So yeah, partner A, partner B, or even number, odd number, some way to get them really quick and done. And then later we sidestep into it, because the whole point of pair programming is that you have two very well-defined roles. One partner is the driver. They're the one actually creating the computational artifact. They're the one who is going to be at the keyboard, coding or drawing or creating in some way. And the other is the navigator, and they are making sure to parse the instructions accurately and look up resources as needed, provide guidance when they spot an error come through, and help develop what questions to ask me, the teacher, when they both get stuck. So there are these two roles, and it's really important to role play in other shorter roles so that they understand that everybody has a job to do. And then once it's time, I probably just randomly assign them. I like to start it randomly. Like I'll say, well, we're going to start with your seating chart. You're already sitting next to somebody. My classroom's actually set up to have table partners. And so we do that frequently and often, starting pretty much day one.
That's so cool. I love that. I hadn't even thought about, starting off with just different, completely seemingly unrelated things, but just to kind of get them working and with the flow. That's awesome. So what are the benefits of paired programming?
Oh, excellent question. The biggest benefit is communicating and collaborating. And there is a lot of extra benefit in just using the terms for the content. So think about the difference between you're lecturing, you're giving standard like scaffolded notes versus they have to be hands-on figuring it out and talking to each other and using that term from the notes. So you can scaffold up to it, but they need to be the ones using it. They're learning better if they are speaking it, if they're communicating about their work. And this is true in both educational programming and industry pair programming, which I often compare and tell them in class that I am comparing this, that I worked in the private sector long enough to know dev shops do this. And they're expecting, if you are interested in this career path, to be able to program with somebody and talk about your work and present it to the board or to clients or to your team. So being able to discuss it helps you learn it better, helps with your soft skills. It also has some practical benefits in the classroom, such as you get kind of a built-in peer review. So it's quicker and faster feedback for students before a teacher has to give the longer term turnaround. So you're more likely to catch errors and misconceptions faster because you've got two sets of eyes on it. And then if they get stuck, they can come to teacher and get some help. Another benefit from industry that I like to tell my students about is a reduction of key man risk. This is an idea where one person at the company might be the talent and they've created something and it's wonderful and it works great. But when they're gone, work stops because they're the only one who knows how it works and who knows how to use it. And who knows how to maintain it and debug it. So having the extra eyes on it and having people in that navigator role explaining, that really reduces that key man risk so that somebody else knows what to do and can pick up that slack. So this is another direct thing that I pitch as, you're learning real world career skills.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And just having that industry knowledge too, like that's so helpful there's a reason why we're doing this. And here's the reason. Yes, that is fantastic. So I know you've talked a little bit about this, but what are there any other specific strategies that you use to make sure that both partners are actively engaged and contributing during this paired programming session?
Yes. One is I'm really thoughtful and deliberate about what the roles are, like per activity. Because in general, yes, driver navigator, you can slap that on most programming exercises. But you might want to get more specific and maybe give a little reference card to the navigator and say, here's a question that you both should consider every 10 minutes. Here is a question about what resources you have available to you when you get stuck. Maybe straight up give them some links. Did you pull up the documentation for Java for this Java programming exercise? Or this package you're using for processing JS or whatever it is. Like, I really like teaching about documentation and how that, the teacher in the room is not the only person who can answer your questions. So the navigator should be responsible for pulling up those documentation resources and using them in the pair. So that's one extra strategy to make sure they're engaged and working. Another is role play. Sometimes roles degrade. It's the most common problem with pair programming is some kind of role degradation. So one of those types of role degradation is straight up apathy, like students just not participating. You try to engage them and they shrug at you. And that's one of my favorite role plays to do is I'll ask the student, hey, you're going to be the guy who doesn't care and just shrugs at me every time I ask a question, just so I can model what questions you should ask your partner. So a little role play does a lot of good there. And then another one is Watching, just watching, like try to make it so you're not doing anything else while you're monitoring those roles, especially in the beginning before it becomes automatic and they know their roles. You want to be sure that they're actually fulfilling those roles, and you can stop anytime and reteach, do the role plays, any of that.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So as you kind of mentioned, if the student's kind of apathetic, how would you handle a situation where students are struggling to work effectively as a pair?
Kind of a lot of the same way you do any classroom management. You got to think about your like reward systems. You got to think about how you're going to motivate them with like extrinsic stuff like grades, and just simple encouragement. Opportunities to role play, I think, become a fun thing in my class. It's fun to be a little free because you're not yourself. Like, all right, you're gonna dial it up to 11 with how you're shrugging at me, and we're gonna do this in front of everybody for a minute. And another thing to consider, especially if you're doing computer science, as somebody who generally does elective classes, this is something I think a lot of business and computer science and technical teachers are learning for the first time because of the new computer science requirement to graduate. Ask for help from the math teachers. They know a lot about students in a compulsory class who need to pass to get to the next level. And so, yeah, their other core teachers might have insights into how to get them to work too. So as a computer science educator, you can lean on the other topic areas. Maybe you have some special services teachers who have insight into some students. Like it's a team effort. And I used to teach math, so I'm particularly buddy with my math department, and I'm always like interested in what they have to say about a student who I'm like, hey, are they this way in your class? Do you have any ideas for me too? Because I know we're both teaching a required class now.
That's awesome. Well, and I love that having them learn to work with someone that's not pulling their weight. That's a skill that they're going to need for the rest of their lives. And so
Yes.
helping them role play through that and think about it and problem solve, that is fantastic. I love that idea. So you have created some really awesome documents to help with paired programming. Are there any specific points that you would like to point out or elaborate on?
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen for the video viewers among us?
Yeah.
This is something I created quite a while ago for a web development curriculum that I was selling and then refining for my master's degree. So this is a little bit specific to a certain curriculum, but it has a lot of stuff that would be relevant to pair programming in general. And it starts with like, what is pair programming? It gives you that overview. And one thing that I think we haven't talked about is the imbalance of skill. And the research is kind of mixed. There's some debate about skill matching in pair programming. Some people believe you should have partners who are like equally skilled, and some believe that you should have like a strong and weak partner and that they will learn better one way or the other. It's really not clear last I knew. That was another reason I had the Hello World book open, is the folks who developed the Big Book of Pedagogy were also saying, as far as we can tell, the results are mixed when it comes to like peer-reviewed research on the subject. But there are benefits both ways. So the risk of having like a big imbalance is one being like a railroading the other. This is a different type of role degradation. We talked about apathy, but this is a different type where the roles get thrown out the window because the stronger partner is just doing it all. And so when in doubt, have them navigate and the weaker partner drive. I have literally told a student who was railroading another student to sit on their hands because they cannot touch that keyboard. They need to let the driver drive. So that's another tip there, is like when in doubt, let the weaker partner drive and have the stronger partner explaining and describing and using that vocab. And you might find that the supposedly stronger partner, while they could bang out the code, needs that practice with the actual vocabulary and being able to collaborate on it. So this is another type of role degradation, which is why I wanted to point it out.
That's great. Well, and also just the communication skills too. Yeah, that's a great thing you brought up. Yeah.
Yep. And then another one with the how often should they switch? I wish that computer science resources would say, here are great things for the navigator to do, and here's how often you should switch when you use this in a pair programming, but that's pretty rare. And you'll wind up having to make judgment calls. Like as you develop lessons, as you practice with them, you might think that this is going to be great for pair programming, and then it turns out to be a big flop, and you just abandon that entirely as a method for that assignment. Or you might tweak it and decide, okay, this works, but maybe we only get one role, and then we're 10 minutes in and we're done, so there's no point in switching. And that's okay. If you do it frequently, then it doesn't matter if it's only a 10-minute activity and you only get to do one role, even though it is definitely beneficial to do both. Do it a lot so you get every chance to do both. And then, yeah, also doing that role play again appeared in that one because it's very, very good. Grading. I did get asked this one a lot when I first developed this, is how do you grade this? Equally is my first answer. Pair programming is meant to develop a artifact, a deliverable. And that's how it is in industry too. You are working on a system or a piece of software or some other kind of deliverable that is then sent to production or sent to a client. And that is how that piece is judged. So that is what I suggest, is to go with equally. That said, one thing that's not in this document, but I think is in the big book of pedagogy, is that it should probably be limited to formative work, and that pair programming in general probably shouldn't be used for summative assessments. Those should probably be individual assessments. You can do a code review as a part of a summative assessment. So after the individuals have drafted their own solution, then they can swap, a lot like you might in an English class swapping essays for a peer review. There's still one person who's responsible for their own deliverable, but you get that rubric or checklist of things to look over with a different set of eyes before it ever gets to a teacher who has to then take a longer time to give that feedback cycle.
Wow. Yeah, this is fantastic. You put so much research into this. This is great. Wow. Yes. Yeah. All right. So my last question for you, what advice do you have for new computer science teachers that would like to add paired programming to their classroom?
Great question. So overall, new computer science teachers, welcome. So happy to have you with us. Talk to us about it. Try it out. Tell us how it goes. Ask us for some help. Like, hey, this happened and I'm not sure what that was. Was it railroading? Sure. Like, see what other people think about it. Like I said earlier, lean on the other core teachers who are also now dealing with, or who have been, and now you are also maybe dealing with a required class and trying to make sure everybody's actually completing that work with higher stakes this time. And yeah, like be as collaborative as pair programming is meant to be.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming over or you out with me.
Yeah, anytime. Always happy to share a bit. Like you heard me say at the beginning, I've been doing this for a while and I do have that industry experience. So I like sharing that stuff. I know not everybody has it. I know a lot of us were voluntold into this. So
Yep.
I am happy to help provide a little support anytime.
So that was fascinating. What are the main ideas that you're taking from this interview?
Wow, there's actually quite a bit. So paired programming is a concept that I studied about in school, but hearing how she uses it in her classroom and the activities she does before they even do paired programming, that's super cool. Also learning about the what she's found in the Big Book of Pedagogy, that's a super awesome resource.
And that is the Big Book of Computing Pedagogy for those of you who aren't using the short form. The short form is okay, but if you're looking it up online, this is how you would find it.
Yes, absolutely. Um,
And I love the emphasis on collaboration as one of the things kids need to learn, because often, because of, I think, the media and what's in the popular imagination of people, they always think about programming and working in computer science as a solitary activity that you do on your own and nobody else sees what you're doing. But in effect, in most companies, in most places, you are working with others who are working on the same code or adjacent code. So you've got to know how to collaborate. And that is an important emphasis and orientation, because as was said in the interview, sometimes kids are very good at the programming but not working with others, and some people are good at working with others and not the programming, and we need both qualities to make effective teams that produce large amounts of code. And I'm a little bit in the back of my mind, as we're thinking about AI, thinking about also how do you have AI as a third partner in this, because we know that AI is now being used to produce code, not replacing people, but actually working side by side with people and making them considerably more efficient. So that's something to think about as we think about this field as it develops.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. And we'll see you next time in CS4NE.